we want to go ahead and rank our top 5 head coaches in the NFL currently right now.
Yeah.
And so, Chase, go ahead and give me your top 5 head coaches in the NFL right now.
Yeah. So I went top 5 going into next season, right?
Yep.
Like you said, right now, not based off what their past, based off what they can do this season. So I put Kyle Shanahan as number 1. I believe he's the best play caller in the National Football League. Took a Mr. Irrelevant and I believe would have been in the Super Bowl if he would have stayed healthy. Got number 2, I've got Big Red, Andy Reid, right? There, you can't argue him and Mahomes. We've talked about Mahomes at the very beginning. Andy Reid deserves all of that credit, maybe even more in finding Mahomes and molding kind of who Mahomes is. Then I've got kind of maybe a shocker pick, but I've got John Harbaugh as number 3. Not really, I tend to go more offensive guys, more of a defensive head coach, but I think John Harbaugh had success with Joe Flacco, and then he brought in completely different system. Obviously, he didn't completely change the system. Again, he's not the offensive guy, but brought in the right people to change the system with Lamar and had success with that. Number 4, I have your hype train guy, Mike Tomlin. I think you've maybe pulled me over just barely watching the hype train, not on it yet, but just watching it. I think Mike Tomlin is a heck of a head coach. And I think what makes Tomlin such a great head coach is the fact that he drafts these people that are complete nutcases, right? Complete divas. And we don't hear about it until they leave. They're not a problem under Mike Tomlin. And then as soon as Mike Tomlin, lets them out from under his wing, they are just, cancer to whatever team they go to. And then at number 5, I got to show a little love to Matt LaFleur. As much as they, we don't know how great a coach he is. He had Aaron Rodgers. He took Aaron Rodgers. I think that coach, he's, besides this last season, he was 13-3. His first 3 seasons, NFC Championship game, all 3 years, number 1 seed for 2 of them. I think this guy, well, not 3 years. I guess he lost in the first round, but he was first seed, second round of the playoffs with Rodgers. But I think Rodgers just ready to go, and I think a lot of that gets pushed back on him, but he kind of brought Rodgers out of that slump, and I think he's ready to do it again with Jordan Love. So I've got him at number 5.
Okay. Well, let me go ahead and give you mine here, and then we'll have some discussion here. So, for me, number 1, I went Andy Reid.
Sure.
Yeah. There's arguments and elsewhere and stuff like this, but the Chiefs are just on top of the world right now, and they have been for the past couple of seasons. So obviously, a big reason of that is for Coach Reid. And so absolutely. I can't not put him at number 1. Then at number 2, Mike Tomlin. I put Mike Tomlin as number 2. And on you kind of touched on it there. If you weren't going to do it, I was going to do it. We're just speaking it like AB, right? AB was the best. If not the best, one of the best wide receivers for 6 seasons there when he played in Pittsburgh. And no one thought anything of it. And then all of a sudden, as soon as he goes to Raiders, it's this huge deal, and he's, getting released and kicked off, and then he's going to the all this different stuff happened as soon as he left Mike Tomlin. So the fact that we didn't hear, now, was that all of a sudden AB going unhinged? Or was he always like that? It's hard for me to believe that he, all of a sudden, something triggered him and he just kind of went off the deep end. If that's not just who he was personally, and somehow Mike Tomlin kept it under wraps. Maybe that's just what I'm choosing to believe, but that's just what makes more sense to me. And Mike Tomlin, he's never had a losing season in 16 years. He's never had a losing season. So even if, the team's not good, they still find ways to win and rally around him and to at least get to 500. So I think that speaks volumes to him as a head coach. So I got him at number 2. Then I got Kyle Shanahan at number 3. I love Kyle Shanahan so much because exactly what he said. I love his play design is amazing. He's able to put really anybody in at the quarterback position and do well. Like, imagine what he would have with like an actual elite quarterback. The 49ers would be unstoppable. Like, just like if he had Mahomes, if he had Herbert, if he had Allen or Burrow, like one of those guys at quarterback. I love Purdy too. I'm a Purdy truther, but one of those elite guys, like for sure, 100%. We know 49ers would be unstoppable. I don't know if they'd ever lose a game coupled with that defense. But he struggles in the big games. He I don't want to say chokes, but his play calling gets sporadic and kind of desperate in big games. We saw it when he was with the Falcons in that Super Bowl loss. We saw it against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Obviously, I don't hold anything against him for last year, but
Yeah.
there's been some times in these big games where he goes away from his play calling, and kind of gets desperate with his play calling when he doesn't need to, and it affects the team, it affects the game, and it's ended in a loss. And so I try not to hold that too much against him, because Andy Reid was the same way for a very long time, and it wasn't until finally he kind of got Mahomes that Mahomes has been able to overcome that and make up the difference, because there's still some questionable calls that Reed throws out there, and that Mahomes is just able to save him because Mahomes is
Yeah.
Mahomes. And so if Shanahan had that type of quarterback, in those moments I'm referring to in the past, maybe things are different.
Yeah.
But that's why I have him there at number 3. At number 4, I have John Harbaugh. I agree with you. He's been successful. He's been a great head coach for as long as I can remember. He's gone through different quarterbacks. He understood. I think he was truly the first head coach to understand to develop the system around the quarterback instead of trying to just find a quarterback to play within a system. I mean, what he did to change the offense. I know he's not the offensive coordinator, but he's the head coach, right? He signs
Yeah.
off on that. So to immediately to take that risk of going back into the first round, grabbing Lamar, knowing you're going to have to change everything, and doing it successfully for the most part, right? Is just great. And it's great head coaching. And the fact that they were able to make the playoffs last year with a third string quarterback, I mean, or I guess second string, but Tyler Huntley, he's and so
Pro
still
Bowl.
be
He's a
there.
Pro Bowl
Uh,
quarterback.
you're right. My bad. I got to put some respect on his name. Um, gosh, the Pro Bowl's a joke. But still puts his team in position to win and be competitive, right? And so got to give him props. And then number 5, I've got Dougie P, Coach Doug
Oh.
Peterson of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Um, as of right now, coming into the season, I mean, we look what he was able to do. Obviously, look what he was able to do with the Eagles, right? He was able to win with Nick Foles at quarterback against Bill Belichick and the Patriots. He was able to coach through that whole thing. I'm not for sure why they let him go. Like, that was really stupid how the Eagles fired him. Obviously, it seems to work out okay. Sirianni seems to be doing an okay job right back in the Super Bowl. But Dougie P, what he's able to do is just change Jacksonville. I mean, Jacksonville had back-to-back first-round picks. Dougie P comes in, and they're in the playoffs. They're playing in the divisional round against the Kansas City Chiefs just 1 year. So imagine what's going to happen this next year. They're going to have another whole offseason together. They're getting some more key pieces back, more offensive weapons. I'm excited for the Jags. I'm excited for the Jags this year. But I think Coach Peterson is a very underrated head coach. And to me, I have him as my top 5 head coach moving into this next season.
Yeah, I like Dougie P a lot. I had him ranked, I had him ranked 7th, and then I can't be mad at, it's funny, we got about the same top 4 head coaches, move them around a little bit, but we've got the same, those are the guys, right? As much as like Mahomes and Herbert and Josh Allen and Burrow, those are the elite elites. These 4 guys are the elite head coaches. Then I think there's another tier. I think another coach that we didn't mention that deserves a little love is Pete Carroll. That guy is phenomenal head coach. What he did with Geno is crazy. So there's another tier, but the top 4 guys is really where the money is to be made. And you kind of mentioned it all. We got the same coach. You put Andy Reid there with Pat Mahomes. It's hard to argue not. That at number 1, Harbaugh. I think we both have him, or you have him 4. I have him 3. We designed the head. Like we both said, designing that, and then Harbaugh's also, he would focused on the offense with Harbaugh, but his defense that he's in charge of is insane, literally crazy. That defense keeps them in games, keeps them winning games. Honestly, should have beat the Bengals in the playoff game if someone would have showed Tyler Huntley that when he QB sneaks, he doesn't jump straight in the air. That's the worst QB sneak I've ever seen. But Tomlin, the magic of the never losing a season, and then you had Dougie P, I had Matt LaFleur because I'm a Packers fan, but about the we think about the same of those. But I wouldn't be mad at sneaking Dougie P in my 5. What he did in Jacksonville, and especially that it came out that can't wait. You know, they're going to make the 30 for 30 on Urban Meyer's life, and there's going to be a whole episode about Jacksonville. They'll have to interview Dougie P how they spent the whole half of this season getting the stink. That's the word he used, stink, out of Jacksonville. So imagine if he had a whole, you know, this offseason. I've got high hopes for the Jaguars this offseason because of that man.
Yeah, and I mean the Jags are prime. I mean that division is ripe for the taking. Possibly, you know, two rookie quarterbacks for sure. We'll see who the Titans go with, but whether it's Ryan Tannehill or Will Levis, there it's not much of a difference at this point.
Yeah.
So the Jags are prime there to at least for this season, right? We'll see what happens with. You know, I know you're big on Anthony Richardson. I'm not as big on. I am big on CJ Stroud. So we'll see what happens with the Texans. I think the Texans are set up for some success here in the near future, but still too early here. So the Jags are in a prime. These next 2 years, I think, is all Jags. A lot will have to go wrong, I think, for Jacksonville to not win this division at least the next 2 years. So I'm excited to see how they build off of next season.
Yeah.
Pete Carroll, that's interesting, to be honest, because I honestly actually didn't think about Pete Carroll at all
Really?
when I was
He was
making my
my
list.
6.
When I was going through, I really didn't think about Pete Carroll at all. I'm not. I guess I just really. I mean, he's not a bad. Like, I don't think he's a bad head coach, but I don't think he's done enough. I guess you know we had the Legion of Boom, you know, for those couple of years, and that was good. But ever since that broke up, the Seahawks, even with Russell Wilson, have not really been relevant ever since. They've just been kind of hanging around and stuff like that. So I guess I don't really. I think would definitely be in if we're talking about tiers. Definitely in the second tier for sure. I'd have to put more thought into it. Maybe the third tier, but that might be too far. But yeah, I didn't think about him at all. If I'm being honest, in my top
Really?
five, like never even crossed. Never even.
Huh.
I actually had Brian Daboll cross my mind before over Pete Carroll. I didn't even think about Pete Carroll. I thought about Brian Daboll 1 year as a head coach over Pete Carroll. So maybe that's my mistake. Maybe I'm being crazy, but
I was just saying.
but yeah.
I'm fairly certain. Don't quote me this, but I'm fairly certain Pete Carroll has made the playoffs after that Legion of Boom. I think he made the playoffs 2 more years after that. I think last season was the first season in a while he didn't. You know, not last season, but the last season with Russ. I think it's kind of evident right now that Pete Carroll was kind of the secret behind Russ's success, and drafting that. You know what he did this year with Geno and that defense. Still, you know, that defense finding Tariq Woolen. You know, drafting him. And just kind of the amount of non-star players that playing at star level that Pete Carroll has, right? Jordan Brooks balled out. I know he's a first-round pick, but he kind of sat dormant for a couple of years. They had the Abraham Lucas, their third-round pick, step up as right tackle and be one of the best right tackles as a rookie coming in. Charles Cross is left tackle, just drafted, had a phenomenal draft. You know, who knows where that goes? Just phenomenal draft according to us, I guess. But one of the best drafts, we talked about. And I think just the amount of respect that the energy he brings to the sidelines, and we talked about the Legion of Boom breaking up. He brought that Legion of Boom together. Richard Sherman was not a high draft pick. Cam Chancellor was not a high draft pick. Earl Thomas was not a high draft pick. They were kind of, Bobby Wagner played at Utah State. I know he's a first rounder, but he played at Utah State. So who knows? There's only been a few good players come out of there. Jordan Love, but so I think Pete Carroll is my honorable mention at 6, and probably if I wasn't such a Packer homer, he probably would have been my 5. I got a lot of respect, and I'm not a big Seahawk fan, but got a lot of respect for Pete Carroll.
I mean, you're right. What am I talking about? He took a picture shirtless with DK Metcalf. He should be number 1.
yeah. He's number 1 on swag charts.
Throughout the list, it's Pete Carroll. He's 1 through 5. It's Pete Carroll, Pete. Middle name Carroll, whatever he is, he's 1 through 5. Pete Carroll.
Yeah. Another guy that we don't have, I think needs addressed, we don't have on our list at all, is Bill Belichick. Historically, probably the greatest coach of all time. Doesn't look so good without Tom Brady. I wonder, here's just a little side question. I didn't prep you for this, but side question. if Pete Carroll doesn't win another playoff game without Brady, do we get to say Brady was the reason Pete Carroll's successful?
I mean, Bill Belichick.
Bill Belichick. Yeah, I'm sorry. Did I say Pete Carroll?
Ask me the question one more time. Sorry.
All right. If Bill Belichick doesn't win another Super Bowl without Tom Brady, can
Super
we,
Bowl.
or playoff game, even Super Bowl playoff game, if he hasn't won a playoff game, he's made to one and got embarrassed with Mac Jones, who played pretty good his rookie year. If he can't win another playoff game without Tom Brady, can we say it was Tom Brady that made him successful? Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm on that. I'm with you. I think Pete Carroll's kind of getting, or gosh dang it, I think Bill Belichick is kind of getting exposed. Right? They gave him the GM rights. He's not surrounding his staff. He's doing with these, a rocket scientist that's never done anything offensively, and Matt Patricia as his offensive coordinator. His drafts the last couple of years have been historically bad. I just think he's not the guy we thought he was. I think Brady kind of covered up a lot of that.
Yeah. So my pushback there is that I'm thinking along the same lines as well. But when you look at, I mean, the Patriots defense is still good. The Patriots defense isn't the problem. It's their offense. And so when you look at it, I mean, Brady never wasn't throwing to a bunch of scrubs. Like when you look at Brady's, he had Gronk, he had Amendola, he had Edelman, he had Moss. I mean, Brady played with some pretty legit and legendary receivers that Mac Jones has not played with. They have not been setting Mac Jones up with success. As you mentioned, they haven't even given him an actual offensive coordinator to work with. So they haven't really been setting up. So you can argue, okay, that is part of being a head coach, and so that is kind of where it looks bad. But where it's not like Tom Brady went to a loaded Buccaneers team. It's not like Tom Brady
Yeah.
went to the Texans and won the Super Bowl. I mean, Tom Brady went from from one, a team that was loaded for a long time to another loaded team. Like, only thing the Bucs were missing was the quarterback position. The only thing they were missing. And so obviously bringing in the GOAT helps fix that. But Brady tried to lose those games. I mean, that Packers game, he threw 3 fourth quarter interceptions, and the Packers weren't able to overcome it. So, I mean, it's not like
at home.
there's a lot of different things that went in there, but
Yeah.
That's my only thing. My pushback is they haven't set Mac Jones up with success, and obviously Brady winning a Super Bowl with the Bucs hurts that conversation, but Brady went to a loaded team. And so I'm still a little bit hesitant to pull the trigger on that to say like, oh, it was Brady. It definitely is looking more like it, but there's a lot of other things going on to where it's Mac Jones just hasn't been given the tools to really succeed yet, and obviously largely falls upon Bill Belichick as, like you said, as the head coach and kind of de facto GM. But so it'd be interesting to see what happens. But they're still not giving him. They're giving him a broken Juju. They're giving him a broken Devontae Parker. They still don't really have any offensive weapons for him. We'll see with Bill O'Brien if he's able to come in and work things out offensively. But now the AFC East is a juggernaut. It's not looking good for the Patriots here moving forward. And so I think my question is, I wonder how far away are we from Belichick just deciding to hang it up? Because I don't think his legacy will ever be taken away. A 6-time Super Bowl champ, I don't think you can ever take that away. But there is a point where being unsuccessful for a longer time towards the end of the career can hurt your legacy a little bit. So I wonder how much that's going to affect his decision to continue to be a head coach and a team that I don't think is going to be very successful here in the next couple of years.
Yeah. Forget how is this affecting LeBron's legacy. Let's talk about throughout this football season. Let's talk about how is this affecting Bill's legacy. Because if they're last in their division, which I honestly think they will be, their division is not a joke anymore. That might be a little bit crushing blow, especially the fact that you can't do it with another quarterback, right? Most of the guys that we listed here, Kyle Shanahan, Andy Reid, John Harbaugh, Mike Tomlin, they've proved that they can have success outside of their, Tomlin's taken rookie Kenny Pickett and Big Ben, who couldn't, stand upright. And then John Harbaugh had Joe Flacco and and what is his name? Lamar Jackson. Kyle Shanahan, we just seen it, had 3 different quarterbacks this year, and Andy Reid, of course, had success with, in Philly with different quarterbacks, had success in Kansas City with Alex Smith, and of course has won the big one twice with Pat Mahomes. So these to be a great legendary head coach, which I think Bill already is, but to cement that legacy, he needs to do it with another quarterback. Even just be successful. Not win a big one. That's hard to do. But he just got to have a success with another quarterback. And he's failed to do that so far.